The American dream with some help from Uncle Sam. It's VA loans. Support for the MILMO Show is provided by Navy Federal Credit Union. We all have to spend money, but it's great when you can get a little back on what you're spending on already. Navy Fed has a new Cash Rewards Plus card. With it, you'll earn unlimited 2% cash back on every purchase. Also, when you spend $2,000, you'll receive $200 cash back and a Walmart Plus annual membership. You can learn more at NavyFederal.org. Hey, welcome to the MILMO Show, where I help the military community make, save, and invest money wisely. I'm your host, Lacey Langford. Serving in the military comes with some perks. The VA Home Loan Guarantee is one of the more popular benefits. It helps service members and veterans with home ownership. While it's generally talked about, sometimes the exact details aren't, and can lead to not getting the most out of that benefit. In this episode, Dr. Paul Lawrence discusses VA home loans in detail. He shares how the benefit works, who's eligible, how it can be used, and the common misconceptions about the VA loan benefit. He also talks about little heard of VA loan benefits like specially adapted housing grants. Dr. Lawrence is a businessman, author, and passionate veteran advocate. He has 35 years' experience solving management problems in large, complex organizations. As a private sector executive, he was a consulting partner at 2 Big Four accounting firms and a vice president in 2 Fortune 500 companies. He is a government management thought leader, having written several books on the subject. For almost 3 years, Dr. Lawrence served as the Undersecretary of Benefits at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. He was unanimously confirmed by the Senate. As the Undersecretary, he was in charge of the Veterans Benefits Administration, or the VBA, leading a team of 25,000 people with an operating budget of $4 billion, administering over $120 billion in benefits annually. He implemented proven business practices, streamlined the bureaucracy, and created public presence, rebranding the VBA as an organization successfully supporting veterans. During his time as Undersecretary, veterans received more benefits faster and at lower cost than any time in the VAB history. His 2001 book, Transforming Service to Veterans: How I Pursued Performance Excellence at the VBA, describes the accomplishments during his time as Undersecretary. To make the benefits experience even easier for veterans, he has a new book called Veterans Benefits Survival Guide. So here is my chat with Dr. Lawrence. Hey, Paul, welcome back to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Lacey, and thank you for all that you're doing. I think that the education you're providing and the information really helps our veterans and families, so thank you for doing this.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. Normally, I'm really not good about compliments, but I'm going to take that, so I am trying really hard.
Well, let me even go further, because I think, as you know, after service, we want veterans to be successful. And so think about what that means. We want them to be, I have a sort of thing, healthy, wealthy, and connected. So healthy, obviously we don't want you just to get better, we want you to be healthier than the average American. And wealthy means strong financials. And connected is own a home in a good community, raise your family. So what we're going to talk about ties into 2 of those, right? Strong financials as well as connected. So again, you're really making a difference in terms of what we want veterans to be like after service.
For people that don't know or aren't exactly sure, can you explain what is your VA home loan benefit?
Right. So technically, the technical term is the home loan guarantee, okay? But it's kind of misleading. But basically, in like everyday language, it's the ability to purchase a home with no money down. And as you know, the ability to pass or forego a down payment is huge. So think about our civilian counterparts. So let's go through a fictitious example. You want to buy a home for $500,000, which is probably a little bit below the average home in the United States. If you are a civilian, you'll have to put down between 10 and 20% of the value of the home. In my example, $500,000 is either $50,000 or $100,000. So you might save for years to save that money to purchase, and you might never get there because of your spending habits and whatever. But if you're a veteran or in the National Guard or even a service member with some time, you can purchase a home with no money down. So you jump ahead of your civilian counterparts in terms of instantly being able to purchase a home. So it's really a very powerful benefit that goes all the way back to the original GI Bill bill in 1944. So people at that time really understood home ownership is very, very important, and it's very important to veterans.
So it's not guaranteeing that you're going to get a mortgage. It's just helping you not have to make that down payment.
Right. Technically, the guarantee is VA guarantees the down payment, right? But as we'll talk later, you actually get the mortgage from a financial institution, right? So, but since you have the guarantee, everyone knows, okay, they're good. And of course, there's a bunch of steps VA will do to guarantee, to work to make sure you don't go foreclosure. So people who have a VA home loan foreclose at a much lower rate than the national average. So it's a very good thing for a financial institution to be involved with.
Who exactly is eligible to use the guarantee?
Certainly. Now, there's a little technicality here, but so broadly, if you're a veteran, you just have to make sure you don't get a dishonorable discharge. So obviously honorable or other than honorable, which is different than some other benefits, right? If you're in the National Guard, there are some requirements, in terms of getting documents from your commander and the like. And if you're a service member still on active duty, right, this has been expanded, you only have to have served for 90 days and again, be sort of in good standing, right? So it's a function of your service and how long you've been, but generally it's 90 days.
And it's for your life, correct? Like it's not just you use it one time, you get it forever.
Multiple times, and under certain occasions, under certain circumstances, you'd actually have two at once, but it's rather narrow. And people tend to think of it as a home, so think about traditional standalone, but it's not. It's other sort of things. Under certain circumstances, it can be a mobile home. It can be a farm, a home on a farm, but not the farm property. It can be a multiple unit building. And so there's a whole bunch of different nuances that people should think about when they think about the home loan guarantee.
I think that's been a key for a lot of veterans that have gone into real estate investing is being able to use their VA home loan guarantee and get a multiple.
Right, multiple units. That's right. So you just got to live in one and you can rent the other. So really, again, think about like our thing about being wealthy. It's not just, it's the value. Homes will be often, as you understand, the most valuable asset in anyone's portfolio, certainly a veteran. So it's a really big deal. And again, can have powerful consequences as you sell it and it appreciates and you do a whole bunch of different things with the money.
I want to ask because my husband and I learned this, not the hard way, it was just we didn't know it when we went to get our second home. What is the funding fee and how does that work the more homes you use the VA loan for?
Right. So the funding fee is the fee you pay when you use the loan. It sort of covers the cost. But don't worry, most people just roll it into the loan. So if you purchase a $100,000 home, the funding fee is 3%, you get a mortgage for $103,000. So it just adds pennies to your mortgage, but it's the way VA generates money to pay for the program. So it's a standalone program. Now the funding fee kind of takes place under certain circumstances. It's a function of how much you put down, how big is your home, how many times you've used it, and if you're service connected, right? So it generally goes up or goes down depending upon those things. You got to look into it. It's rather complicated. It's hard to explain without a whiteboard, right? But I think the whole point of it, be aware of, if you are service connected, the funding fee is waived, okay? But also more importantly, if you are buying a home while you are going through the disability compensation process, you need to let them know that, because if at the end you purchase the home, but you then become service connected, they will refund the funding fee. So there's kind of one of these moments in time you have to appreciate, like, are you in the process of being service connected? So tell them that so that at the end you can get the money back if you do become service connected.
I did not know that. That's really good because most people would think like, oh, I'm not there yet. I don't qualify for that. But that would be awesome to then not have to pay that money. Even if it is pennies into the mortgage, it's still a lot of money.
Well, yeah, but just think about it sort of, if you could be instantly determined if you were service connected, it would sort of be done while you're in the process of getting your mortgage. But because it takes so long, you're sort of like putting time on hold, if you will, while you get that. But yeah, pay attention to that because it could be $3,000. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I believe my husband and I, we started alternating our funding fees until like my husband was service disabled. Then it was like, okay, that would help reduce it. Using it the next time because it was the first time we used my VA home loan. So, what are common misconceptions about using the VA home loan guarantee that people should be aware of, or maybe misunderstandings that can cause them financial or heartaches later?
Sure. I think the big one is it's too hard and it's too complicated. And I think that actually was borne out by fact back in the day. Real estate agents didn't understand how to do with it. So you'd have a real estate agent, you'd find some house and say, hey, I want to use my VA home loan. Go, oh, that's really hard to do. We don't want to do that. Okay. There's still some of that, but VA's gone out of its way to educate them on how easy it is to use. So that's the big thing. And of course, if you do encounter that, there's a number you can call where VA home loan experts are there to help people talk through the process. So that's probably the other one. Second one is, oh, VA is going to give me the mortgage. It's like, no, you're going to have to go into the private commercial mortgage industry where just because you have the guarantee, right, I'm a veteran and I'm eligible to use it, they will check your credit and they will also do something called debt to income, right, the ratio of your debt to income, and make sure those meet certain standards. And if you don't, you will not get a mortgage. So you may have the home loan guarantee, but if your credit and your measures of your ability to pay, you will come up short. So that's probably the other one.
Is it harder to actually get approved for a loan because of the VA? So I remember one of the houses we bought, there was some problem with the attic stairs, and we had to have the house looked at, appraiser come and look, and they wouldn't sign off on these stairs until basically they ended up having to be rebuilt, which was a huge investment. So is that part harder? Do they have higher standards? I
don't know they have higher standards, but they are sort of protective since it is sort of their guarantee, right? So as part of the process, you'll go set up a deal. I want to use this. VA will send a VA-approved appraiser to go and look at it. And it sort of makes some sense, which is, we're going to loan you all this money. Is the house worth what you're paying for, right? And so the appraiser might come back and say, all good. The appraiser might come back and say, actually, you got a deal. It appraises for much more. But they may come back and say, there are some things that got to be fixed, or this doesn't appraise at the price you're paying. So there are some nuances. So it can be a headache, but is also designed to protect the veteran as well as VA. So it sort of makes some sense. It used to take forever to get an appraiser to come, so people were very, very frustrated. Hey, I signed this. What do you mean I can't get the appraiser there? They've really gone out of their way to get more appraisers so that it'll be much, much faster.
Yes, I do remember it taking a little bit, but I think it was a great education. Like when we were young and married before kids and had never bought a home before, it was actually really great to have, I didn't see that at the time, but to have a little backup. That things that we didn't know or that we could have been taken advantage of, to have that appraiser go through, because we had no idea that those stairs were bad until that appraiser came through and said, these are bad stairs.
Right, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to protect the veteran.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
No, that's, I think, a really good point. During your time as Undersecretary of Benefits, were there any initiatives or reforms that you implemented to improve the VA loan process? Or maybe what changes do you think might need to be made to give veterans more access to home ownership?
Sure. Well, the one thing is, and this is now I'm going to take you deep into the process. So the way you actually use the home loan guarantee is you have to get what's called a certificate of eligibility, COE. Yep. You have to get this, right? So when I first showed up, it was basically, hey, we give them in 5 days. Well, when you're trying to do what I learned when I was in office was veterans want their benefits fast. They want them accurate, but they want them fast, right? So I was like, why does this take 5 days? So by the end of my time there, 99% of them were done in 1 day. Most were done online within an hour. So basically, when it comes to, hey, I need to get my COE to use the home loan guarantee, boom, it all worked out. So there were some exceptions, but basically very high percentage got it almost instantly. So that was like a godsend, because as you point out, you're in the process of purchasing a home. You don't want to be delayed. You don't want to be told no. You say, hey, I finally got this. It's a huge stressful thing in my life. I want assistance, not constant roadblocks and constraints.
Yeah, I think that's really a good point. I think that's anything. You don't need it. I mean, you don't seek things out until you need it at that moment. Right. And so it's like, I need the certificate. I don't need it in a month. I needed it yesterday, because most of us wait till the last minute on things. So that, I think, helps speed it up too for people, because in the whole process of getting a home, there's so many moving parts. You're dealing with a real estate agent, you're doing appraisals, house inspections, getting a loan, all of these things, and you want to knock things off your list pretty quickly. So, and unfortunately, no offense to you, but like the VA did get a reputation for that.
Oh, no, it was well earned. It was well earned to wait multiple months to get it appraised, to wait days to get a form when, as you know, log on to Amazon, everything's happened instantly. So the world is just getting faster and better. Now, the second part of your question, though, is what might be done. I think there's probably a need for more education about owning a home. It isn't just this transaction, but it's like, okay, now you realize what this comes with, right? It's a payment every month. Okay, there's a whole bunch of different things. And sadly, not all veterans should own homes. It's terrible to think about people get in and they say, well, I really can't afford this, and now I'm under a great deal of financial pressure. So ironically, while veteran home ownership is very high, it probably isn't going to be 100%, and they do a lot better to explain to people, you're not ready now, but with a little bit of work, maybe in a year or two, you will be. So there's one of those chicken and the egg kind of thing. We want to be careful, because if you own a home and you have a bad experience, you might never go back into this again. Whereas if you could wait and be educated, home ownership at the right period of time in your life would be a really good thing.
That's a very good point, and I completely agree, because I mean, just as a financial coach, I've had people come to me that their mortgage went up, they didn't realize property values went up, and so they just had enough money to make their mortgage payment, and now that property values have gone up and their taxes, they now can't make their mortgage payment, and then not understanding you have to bear the costs of this home. So if the HVAC goes out, like that's a huge expense. Right. If there's a problem with the roof, all of these things. But I see that it actually ruins people financially, thinking like, okay, everybody should have a home. I have this benefit. I'm going to use it. But you weren't in a good financial position to make that decision. And then now you've missed payments and, going into more debt because of the whole situation. So I'm a huge fan. Mark me down for that. I want to talk about the interest rate reduction refinance loan, IRRRL, just another acronym.
Cool acronym. Yeah, most people call it EARL.
Okay, yes.
Because of that.
We'll stick with EARL.
So excuse me. It's really a great benefit, or part of the benefit that has to do with when your interest rate goes up. So let's do an example. You purchase a home with a 6% interest rate, which is about what happens now. So you have a mortgage, you're paying 6%. When interest rates go down, you can refinance your house so that you get that lower mortgage interest rate, okay? With the EARL, basically it's very streamlined. I have a VA-backed mortgage now. You go to a financial institution and say, I want to refinance. I want a VA-backed mortgage, only I want it at the lower interest rate. I want you to do an interest rate reduction refinance. Okay? And they say, okay, the real value of this is because you're in the VA system, it's streamlined, it's very fast, and it's very easy. So your payments go down because the interest part of your principal and interest is less. And so I think in this time of the world, when interest rates are relatively high for mortgages, one can imagine it's all cyclical. If we can get inflation under control, interest rates will go down, and therefore the EARL will be a very attractive instrument. So I think you probably talk to your clients about this. You buy the home, but you rent the interest rate. Right? So while they're high now, relatively high, they will come down again, and then you can do the EARL. So that's what it's designed to do, is reduce your payments.
But it's through your lender,
right?
Not through the VA. I feel like a lot of people get that confused, thinking that that's the VA that's reducing their interest rate. No, that's just, it's being noted that you have that type of loan.
Right. Because you have the VA loan, it's easy to do and stay within the VA loan kind of family. And as a result, because all your information is there, you generally have less paperwork. So it's generally talked about a streamlined refinance. That's one way to do it.
And that's hugely appealing, dealing with anything, the home, government. If it can be streamlined, then sign me up. For people that are using their VA loan benefit for the first time, what's your advice for them to get the most out of that benefit? You mentioned education, which I think is so important. Probably get yourself schooled up.
Right. Yeah, do the homework in advance. It is like everything else. It's a system and a process, and there are rules, right? Know the steps, right? Get this all figured out in advance. Get your COE. Go work with your who's going to lend the money in advance. Then find the house and then sign the deal. So if you get the steps kind of figured out well, right, it should kind of work for you. But yeah, know the steps in advance. Have reasonable expectations about the time. I mean, there's so much going on where houses are hot. You want to go buy the home, and if you're not ready, someone buys it before you can respond. So be prepared for that. And then just shop around. There's lots of different interest rates that'll be offered to you. Generally with a VA loan, your interest rate is a little bit lower than the market, but you do have to shop around. So be aware of that. So yeah, it's good, but it's not nirvana, as they say. You still got to do your homework. But generally, people have a very positive experience with home ownership and with the VA loan.
What is one or two of the biggest mistakes that you see people make in this process? Because it's very emotional,
Right.
especially if you're a first-time home buyer. You're very excited, and especially if married, like a couple, like all of these things
Yeah.
get rolled into using that benefit for the first time. So what's a mistake that people make?
Well, sort of, probably this is just a general home ownership, which you have to shop, right? Don't fall in love with the first house. Be prepared to not purchase the house, whatever. But the loan should just be sort of a thing. It shouldn't be such a big issue. It just should be, no, I've got this figured out. You know, I've done the homework in advance. I know who my lender's going to be. I know what the interest rate's going to be. I'm all ready to go. One of the challenges, of course, is when interest rates are changing. If you're buying a house when they're going up, you know, they'll tell you every day, well, if you sign today, the interest rate is this. If you purchase the house next week, it could very well go up and the like. So it's always a feeling of frustration when that's going on. But you've got to sort of like understand you're making a commitment to, you know, a huge asset. You've got to really think seriously about that, because just a little bit of a mistake can be a big mistake in a home purchase.
If people do make mistakes, what help does the VA, you know, if they get into a predatory situation or somebody's taking advantage of them, what is there protections that come with that?
There's not protections, but there's assistance, right? So VA has a group of team in their home loan a group of people in their home loan team that you can access and call. They can help you. They can give you information. This is especially true if you're struggling to make your payments, right? They can't waive them, but they can help you sort of figure out some budget things and the like so that you stay in the home. It doesn't do anybody any good if a veteran forecloses on their home, right, or has foreclosed on them, or they go bankrupt and the like. So they try real hard to assist a veteran stay in the home. So you can access them. I think the number is 877-827-3702. So they should check that out.
That's impressive. You have that off the
Yeah,
top of your
yeah.
head,
You say it often enough. You say it often enough, and you remember that. But it's a great team there, and they will help, right? And so they can't fix situations that are unfixable, but they can give assistance and coaching and try to help the home purchase make sense.
I love that. I want to switch gears and just ask you about your time as the Undersecretary of Benefits. I can't imagine stepping into that role. Because people are very passionate about the VA, one way or the other. Mm-hmm. You know, when it's helping a lot of people, some people will get frustrated with that. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you took on that job?
Yeah, well, it's funny you mention that, because you have this moment when they approach you and say, hey, would you like to do this, right? Where you say, okay, you know, it will be hard, it will be a pay cut, it will be very different, kind of whatever. And then you realize, you know, for too long, in my case, I sat on the side and was really disappointed with the people in the job. I didn't think they understood it. I didn't think they were very veteran focused. I thought they got distracted by things. And quite frankly, I thought the performance of what was going on was really unsatisfactory. I mean, they would say they were doing well, and maybe they were, but you know, good enough isn't good enough for veterans. I never understood why. Why do we have to assume that the VA experience is okay? I mean, we ask, as you know from your service, we want us to have the very best military in the world. Like, no kidding, the very best. And then we say, oh, by the way, you're going to go into the VA and it's going to be kind of harumph, right? So I said, okay, you can sit on the sideline or you can go do something. So first, I'm going to commit to go doing something, right? And my big discovery was, you know, that by and large, the people there cared a lot. Most of them were veteran. If I remember right, in the Veterans Benefits Administration, like 55% of the folks were veterans, so they understood. But it was this big machine that was just hard to make some sense out of. And then I began to listen to veterans, and like I said earlier, what do you want from this? Well, I don't want mountains of information. It's like, I want my benefits fast. So the question was, okay, what can we do to make it fast? What can we do to make it accurate? What can we do to sort of serve veterans? So that was something that I just championed the entire time. It's like, how fast is this going to happen? So there were things like that. It was 5 days, let's make it 1. It was 14 days to get your GI Bill claims done, let's make it 10, right? How fast can we get claims done? It's, yeah, you could, 125 days is sort of this number. It was 90 when I left, you know? So it was sort of like, hey guys, we can do this better. And for the most part, folks wanted to be better. They didn't like, you know, being the whipping person. They didn't like everyone going, oh, you're working, oh, that's too bad. They're really underperformers, a group of sad sack people. They liked being known as, hey, you guys are actually pretty good at what you do. People are complimenting you on your service, on how well you're doing. So that's a much better position to be in. So it was really understanding what veterans want, getting the organization to appreciate it, and then begin to act on it.
I feel like that's still felt, though, like the work that you did. I mean, I've now been, you know, to the VA, experienced that in person. And I do think compared to like my dad's experience and other people that I know, it's night and day. Yeah. That they're actually being treated like service members, like the veterans that they are. I mean, but you see that too, like going to the, you know, the exchange of the PX or the BX, you know, somebody that's working there, that the way they're treating, you know, a young service member, it's like, why would you not treat them with respect or just be kind or whatever it is? Yeah. And so I love that. That's a basic thing. Like they should be treated well when they walk in.
Right. And also, if you take a step back and think about it, right, we want people as veterans to have great experiences, so they recommend to their family members or friends that they actually join the military, right? Because of course, what you want to say is like, yeah, I joined the military. No more draft, right? It's all volunteer. I joined. I had a good experience there. I learned things, had opportunities in life. And then when I became a veteran, I had also good experience. You don't want them to say, oh yeah, then it was terrible. So when someone comes to their house who doesn't have any veterans in their life, you want them to say, no, it is a good thing. So people enlist.
Yes, that's a really good point because it's contagion. I see this with personal finance on installations everywhere, that if they don't have a good experience, they're going to go tell people about that. And then the people that could have used that help are never going to come receive it because of what got spread. What was the biggest lesson you learned during your time in that role? Like, I can imagine there was a lot of lessons learned, you know, from the challenges or the results, but like walking out of that role, what were you like? That was...
Yeah, well, the big lesson was really, I did not realize this. I thought it was one job, but it was really 3 jobs, and let me explain. I spent a lot of time thinking about, well, how do you run an organization that is processing benefits? It's really a large financial organization, right? 100-ish, at the time, $120 billion a year, paid to 6 million veterans across all these different benefits. So I said, okay, this is a big factory. How do you run the factory? So that was what I thought I was really going to work a lot on. But in that I realized, well, wait a minute, time out. It's not just running the factory. You have to pay a lot of attention to Congress, since they are, in fact, the sort of the board, if you will. So you got to pay attention to Congress. Then you also have to pay attention to the veteran service organizations, right? So they have a lot of influence in terms of their members tell them things and they come and tell people about it, right? And I remember very clearly early on, I would walk by and drive by the Paralyzed Veterans of America, PVA, and they had a huge sign outside their headquarters, and they'd say, you know, they fought for us, now we're fighting for them. And I always used to think, well, who are they fighting with? And then you realize, well, they're fighting with the VA. It just didn't quite say that.
Like, it's you.
Yeah. And then you realize, well, why are we fighting? Don't we have so much together in common that we can work on, as opposed to seeing like you have to fight? And so it was really a window into, no, we're on the same team. What can we collaborate on? So I spent a lot of time trying to figure that one out. Spent a lot of time trying to figure out like how to interact with Congress effectively, because sometimes they'd pay attention and sometimes they wouldn't, sometimes whatever. So you really had it. So I often thought a big discovery is just really 3 jobs. And so that was really kind of the real interest, trying to figure out like how to allocate time, how to spend time with each. And no matter how much time you paid attention to the VSOs and Congress, it never seemed to be enough, right? So you're always sort of saying, here, how much more can I tell you? What more do you need to know?
Yeah, that's a lot of different hats every day to be handling, in addition to doing the actual work of impacting the lives of veterans. I want to switch back. What is specially adaptive houses for veterans, and how is the VA in that?
Yeah, it's called Specially Adaptive Housing, or SAH, right? And so the way to think about this is, we've talked about owning a home, and you imagine sort of a traditional sort of family and a home. However, if you're service connected, your home might have to be adapted to your situation. So the easiest way to think about it is, if you're in a wheelchair or if you're impaired in terms of sight and hearing, your home might not work for you, right? So they can go in and put certain things in. So imagine going to the bathroom in a wheelchair. You need a much larger bathroom. You need a drive-through, a drive-in shower and bathtub. You cannot do things as if you were not service connected. So they have a special program called SAH, and there's different variations of this where you can get a grant to have your house adapted to the situation where you're in. So it's really a good program to help folks who have changes in their lives and their house has to be different. It can be tedious because you do have to go and work with contractors. VA will help you, but they won't do it for you. And if you live in parts of the country where there are not many contractors, you could experience problems and the like. But it's really designed to make home ownership comfortable for folks who have disability or constraints on their lives. So I encourage everybody to think, hey, maybe you think you can't own a home. Well, you can. It can get you a ramp. It can do certain things that just makes the house easier for you to be in, you know.
I just want to make sure I have that right. So you can get a VA home loan guarantee, but then you get the grant from the VA.
Right. So imagine purchasing a home. Let's kind of go through an example. You purchase a home. Here's my $500,000 home. This is perfect for me. It has stairs and you're in a wheelchair. Okay? It has a traditional bathroom and you're in a wheelchair. So you go, that's cool. I got a great house, but now I have some limitations. Okay, I need a Stairmaster. Okay? I need a bathroom remodeled. Okay? Now you can get a specially adaptive housing grant, up to I think it's about $120,000 now, and have somebody do that for you, okay? And so that's kind of the thinking.
So it's not, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I got it. So you don't have to already have it, or do you already have to have the VA home loan guarantee before you're disabled and then you're adapting, or if you're already disabled and going and find a house, but it has to be adapted?
No, it depends. So let's go through some. You own your home now.
Okay.
And say, hey, I become service connected and this home doesn't work for me. Okay? You can get an SAH grant to fix it. Okay? You purchase a home and you realize it needs to be adapted, you can get an SAH grant, right? Even in certain services, you're temporarily living, you can get one version of it where it's a smaller grant to deal with stuff temporarily, right? The wheelchair is one example. You could be sight impaired, so now you need different things to draw your attention to stuff. Or you could be hearing impaired, you need different kind of configurations. The bathrooms and stairs may work perfectly for you, but your ability to be in the house doesn't work because of your disability. So it's just try to separate the two out, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's really great. And I don't think a lot of people know about that.
Yeah, they don't. And I won't lie, it is a tedious program to go through. There is bureaucracy because you could imagine, you're going to say, okay, so you get this grant for $120,000. It's the same thing you experience. Is the contractor giving you the right plans? Is this going to solve your situation? Can it actually work in your house? A VA will come and make sure that you get a fair value for what you're going to get the grant for, and sometimes there's problems on both sides, which the contractors don't understand it, VA is not timely in approving the plans because everything is unique. So, but it is a really good program, super well intentioned, and really is designed to make homes, available for folks whose situation is beginning to change.
I completely agree that that's an amazing program that's available, but is it hard? I know it's tedious, the whole process, but the actual getting it, is that hard? Because I'm assuming they're looking at your disability rating.
Yeah, they're looking at your disability rating and what you're wanting to do. That's not too hard. Often the hardest part is getting a contractor to come do this project, especially when the home building and remodeling market gets hot and they can go do they can do larger and different size projects, right? Or if you live in a rural part of the country, there's not many contractors. It could be hard to get somebody to do that. So often the things are just a function of getting it done.
There are some programs, sometimes people take advantage. So is there can you say I have PTSD and I need to have my kitchen remodeled because that calms me down?
Yeah, I don't think you can really take advantage of this one. I suppose you probably could,
Okay.
but it's really, most of the grants are well less than that 100,000, so you wouldn't get the whole thing if
Okay.
you couldn't do that. So I suppose you could, but there is sort of a check and balance, right? You got to have this, you got to want to do this. This will take some time, so it's not a great way to really take advantage of the system.
I think there's a lot of nonprofits too that, not a lot. I think of one off the top of my head, Tunnel for Towers, that are working to fix homes
Right.
for veterans that are disabled to make them. So I think that's great that there's the program that the VA is doing. And there's other things out there too if you don't get maybe the full grant.
Right. Well, not only that, but there's a handful, right? Purple Heart Homes, Homes for Veterans. You could Google search this in a minute. Who just say, hey, but if you're not service connected, but now just through life, you need a ramp into your home. Just through life, you have stairs. They'll do that too. So yes, there's lots of programs for veterans, and generally they don't cost anything and the like. So yeah, so I would not be discouraged if you technically don't meet the SAH requirements, because there's lots of organizations, nonprofit, that really want to help veterans with their housing issues.
And the SAA requirement, it has to be service connected.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good distinction to make for making sure I wrap my mind around that. I want to ask, there are a boatload, and I mentioned them, nonprofits and organizations that serve the veteran community, whether, it's with VA loans, the guarantee, or other benefits. How can veterans know the difference between good and bad players in the field? Because sometimes there unfortunately are people that take advantage.
Yeah, almost like everything. I think the last time I heard about this, there's something like 40,000 organizations that would say they are here to help veterans. Okay, and sometimes people say it's too large, and I actually completely disagree. I think more is better. If you're passionate to serve veterans and you want to go form an organization to do that, God bless you and thank you, okay? But like everything else in life, how does a veteran know which restaurant is good? How do they know which car dealership to purchase their car from? There is an element of you have to do your homework, okay? A lot of nonprofit organizations are in GuideStar, different things like that. They have to put up their financials on their websites, generally the IRS Form 990, where they report how they're spending the money. So you really do have to go do homework, right? And I'd even go further, which is just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean you're awesome, and just because you're for-profit doesn't mean you're not. It depends upon the organization. There's a lot of for-profit organizations that want to help veterans and do a very good job. So ironically, it's on the veteran to make the right choice. But just think about what we've talked about. When you were in service, at a very young age, we gave you tremendous responsibility. We gave you lots of money to be responsible for. And by and large, people made the right choices. It's the same thing is true when you're a veteran. You still have to make choices. You have to make choices about if you want help on your disability claim. You can pay for assistance from a lawyer or you can get help from a VSO. You have a lot of choices. That's almost the definition of what it is to be an American. It's no different with these organizations. So again, do your homework, talk to your friends, look at their ratings, and just ask.
I know we've talked about this in past shows, which I'll definitely link up for everybody to listen to. But on disability claims, there's a lot of people, and now that I've gone through the process myself, especially women veterans, not have ever filed. It's good and bad. Yes, a lot of our culture is somebody else might need it more than I do. But for people that have never gone and done their claim, or maybe have something wrong and they need help for it, what's your advice, or to get them to take advantage of the benefit that they earned?
Right. So I would even change your language, not take advantage, simply access the benefit you've earned.
Thank you.
So I think it's very, very important. So first, the somebody else needs it more is just inaccurate thinking. The money for veterans benefit is what's done through the budget called mandatory spend. Congress has to set it aside. If you get benefits, it doesn't come at the expense of your husband's benefits or somebody worse off. The Congress will always have the money for this. Sort of like Social Security. They're always going to have the money for this, all right? So that's something. The other thing too is, even though you might feel great now, things get worse over time. Okay, it's especially true for hearing and the like. The other thing is, listen, it's just a benefit. The American people through Congress have set this up because they understand time in the military can be demanding physically. And even if you never served in combat, you trained for combat, you did things, you worked long hours, you did physical activity, these things can affect your body. So I always tell people, come in and see if you're eligible for benefits. It's easier to apply when you're younger and closer to your service. You have all the records, you know what happened and whatever, and later things will get worse. Here's a classic example. My brother, he's out of the military 20 years or more, okay, sitting at my daughter's wedding and the reception afterwards or the breakfast the next day. I come and sit next to him, we're talking to him, and he's looking at me funny, and his wife goes, "You're going to have to talk to his other ear. He cannot hear out of this ear." And so I, wait a minute, time out. You're in the chemical corps, you rode tanks, you were near mortars, you did all these things. That was a function of your military service. Have you ever applied for benefits? No, of course not. Okay, well, that's what happens. It was fine, and it got worse and worse and worse to the point where it was a real issue. So I always tell people, come in, get checked out. You know, if you get denied, doesn't matter. Come back later. If you think it got worse, you get accept. If you got benefits, come back later every 3 to 5 years because things get worse. Sadly, they don't get better over time. So I always tell people, come in. Now, if you're a woman and you say, I feel uncomfortable, you can ask for a woman adjudicator. You can ask for women to work with you on your issues. This is especially true around military sexual trauma. This is the one that gets people in a weird situation because it takes a great deal of moral courage to come forward. Don't want to tell the story more than once. You don't want to do this. Everybody understands the processes should be better. They're not always better, but they should be better because they really do understand things like that. So I would, again, encourage people, get assistance, get support from your buddies, your friends. These are things you've earned. They're special for being a veteran, and you should really access them.
Yes, I completely agree. I wish more people would do it. I think, that's the way it was back then. Is like people just didn't file, like they, But the point that you're making, that's right now. That's not what your body's going to be in the future, or your mind, or you're hearing all these things. And so getting the plan in place earlier on, I think, is better. Right.
And let me just do it quickly. So you could say, okay, so here's something I would do. I would Google search or use your search engine to do what you did in the military and common disabilities. There's a pretty good sort of thing that comes up, which basically says, oh, if you were a pilot, for example, it's necks, right? The jarring, your back, and your hips. And you go, oh yeah, I was a pilot. That's likely. And often when I see veterans, I can pretty much say, what did you do? Oh, how about, they go, yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. And it's like, well, I just began to see the common things over time, and you can research that. And if you go to a VSO to help you with your claim, they will ask you the same question from having done a lot of claims. And they will say, oh yeah, when I deal with, people like this, I deal with their needs. And oh yeah, how'd you know? Well, it's just kind of what happens.
I felt like people sometimes, if they didn't spend a career, like let's say, I don't know what the job is, you did 4 years in artillery or whatever, or not artillery, that's not a good example, but I don't know, like me, like you type or you do whatever, but then that's your new career, like you've started the training, so then you naturally go into it. So I feel like a lot of people think, well, I was only in for 4 years, so it might be like muddled. Like, So I feel like that's what stops a lot of people from applying for their benefits, because they're like, was it military? Was it not military?
Yeah, well, you'll have to figure that one out, and that's what VA will have to figure out. But technically, you could be in for one day. Hey, I got hurt in basic training, and I really got hurt. Am I eligible for benefits? Yes, of course. I never served in combat. It doesn't matter. Were you in the military, right? And you're right. You have to sort of figure this one out. Most people don't apply for benefits. They didn't have anything go on in their career that puts them in that situation, and that's really great. But sometimes stuff happens. It's just you weren't there, when you didn't go out of your way to be exposed to a loud noise. You didn't go out of your way to have a fall off a ladder doing stuff, right? And so it's one of those things where you just have to kind of figure out.
How does it work, though, all the benefits? Because I feel like a lot of people just talk about disability compensation. A lot of people talk about the VA home loan. But is that the starting gate to receive any type of benefits? Because, could you get prescriptions filled? Or do you have to go through disability compensation in order to get a prescription filled? Or can you get a physical? Or if you've only served 4 years? I feel like there's a lot of nuances that people just don't know how it works.
Yeah. Well, so the monetary benefits, like disability compensation, the GI Bill, those you just apply because you served in your disability, your discharge allows you to get it, right? So the GI Bill, you have to have an honorable discharge, for example. So there are some constraints, but those you can access, whatever. When you wander into the medical benefits, if you are a veteran, you can go to a VA hospital, okay? Their ability to serve you, though, is a function of kind of your disability situation. If nothing's wrong with you, they'll help you, but you'll probably have a copay, or they may make you pay for it like traditional medical insurance. If you are service connected, if you have a Purple Heart, if you are POW, you work into their priority categories to the point where you won't have to pay for things. So you 100% service connected, you have free dental, for example. But if you're not, you'll pay for that. So you can always access it. It's just a matter of the situation you're in and whether you pay or not.
Yeah, because there's things like the VA burial. Like, right, you receive, if you served, you receive a free burial, but that's not... You may have never gone through the disability process.
Absolutely,
but
that's disconnected. In fact, you can go on and determine whether you can go on to va.gov and determine whether you're eligible to be buried at a VA cemetery. There's something called the eligibility determination. You just have your DD-214 and you can figure out, would I be eligible, so you can tell your family well before the time. You can't make a reservation, but they'll tell you, yeah, you're eligible for a VA cemetery, to be buried in a VA cemetery.
I thought everybody was eligible.
There's certain circumstances. You got to check your DD-214.
I didn't know that, but that's good to know. I've never checked mine, so I'm going to be checking my eligibility.
Yeah. VA, it's a very simple process. Have your DD-214. You'll find out very quickly if you're eligible.
Okay, that's good to know, because that was an assumption I was making, that I was just a given.
Yeah.
Told my children, like, this, do the VA stuff.
Chances are you're right, but again, you want to know.
That's an assumption. That's an expensive assumption to make. So, are there any other benefits that you feel like, especially like the housing for, what is it called again? Specially adapted housing. Yes, like that. Are there other benefits that people don't know that are out there?
Yeah, so here's one that comes up a lot, okay? VA has a benefit called pension, which is sort of badly named because it sounds like retirement, but it's not. It's a tax-free payment if you kind of fall on hard times. If you serve during wartime, so there's definitions and you can find this out on the website, but basically since 1990, we've technically been in wartime. So you served since 1990, okay? And if your assets fall below a certain level, you can get a pension. It could, $100 a month, $1,000 a month. It sort of depends, okay? But why this is important is for the older veterans in your life, okay? So I always get asked. My mother, okay, it's not just a veteran, it's called survivor pension as well. My mother's husband served in the war. Now I'm worried about her assets. They're falling below a certain level. Is there anything for her? This pension is could be available under these circumstances. And even though they own a home, some of the assets are not counted. So home, cars, things like that. So you could look like you're actually pretty well off, but you're really not, right? And so you're worried you're running out of money. So this is especially true in your neighborhood, old uncle you don't do much with, somebody you worry about. There's this thing called pension, which really can help those folks. It also is very valuable when folks are homeless and they're not getting any benefits. They may be eligible for a pension. So this is a benefit that is often not thought about very much, but it can really help people in difficult financial situations.
This is why everybody should get your book, Paul, because I did not know that. But I feel like that would help a lot of the homeless population right now.
That's one of the benefits if they, again, serve during wartime. So there's a little bit of a caveat. That's one of the benefits, that when a homeless person shows up and they eventually find their way into somebody who can help them with benefits, that's often the benefit that really helps them kind of get their feet under them and start moving in a different direction.
Super happy I asked that question, because there are a lot you hear, like an an uncle or a widow like that is on hard times, and then the family is kind of bearing that load, and some families can't bear that load. Right,
and as you think about it, Vietnam veterans, the average age of Vietnam veterans is like 75 or more. I've lost track of the exact statistics. They're wandering into that sweet spot, right? Of like, hey, I didn't imagine maybe living this long. It wasn't that long. The tables have changed, right? And now assets aren't going as far. And I'm a veteran, and I would qualify for this. So,
wow, well, I'm going to definitely link up to all that stuff so people can find that. That's a good one. I'm going to switch gears now and ask you a couple quick random questions. I've asked you before. I'm going to ask you again.
I know, and I'm up front. I always do badly at these.
No, not the game yet. Just this, I want to ask, what is a resource or tool that you use that makes your life or your work easier?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Well, here's the dilemma. Here's the dilemma I find. I often get information using Google or YouTube. However, I'm not always convinced folks are actually accurate in their information. So given my understanding of benefits, I don't know everything, but I learned a lot. Okay, I regularly see stuff where people present information that isn't always accurate. I don't think they're doing it intentionally, but sometimes they just don't know. But I like it when people can explain stuff, and often they're demonstrating things when I'm doing projects around the home. So I do those, but I would have a warning: be careful, because it's often hard to get this right. And so especially as you search veteran information, have a little bit of just warning and awareness in it.
Yes, I agree with that, because we had to change out a gas tank once on a Blackstone, and we were trying to use a bigger can, and I was like, this could go really wrong. I was like, let's watch this whole YouTube channel. I'm like, we're putting a lot of faith in this guy to fire this thing up. I totally agree with that statement. Okay, what is your favorite book right now, or your favorite book of all time?
Yeah, my favorite book of all time continues to be the book Moneyball, which is about baseball. But the reason I like that so much is, I'm a big baseball person, but what I like about that is using numbers to measure things. I think that really matters, right? And, having evidence is especially in the world we live in, where there's too much anecdotes and things, is like, having data to make informed decisions, whether it's about, where you work or just your life in general, really matters. And I like that book because it really does tell a story about numbers and why they really matter.
That's a good one. And if you want to cheat, you can watch the movie too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But the book's always better.
This book is about 10. The movie's pretty good. This book is about 10 times better than the movie. So.
I've never read the book, so I probably do need to take the time. I'll add that to my list. All right, now it's time for game time, which is my favorite part of the podcast. And today, in honor of your visit, we are going to be playing Is It Real? So I'm going to give you the names of 5 places, and you have to tell me if it's a real place or it's not a real place. If you get 3 out of the 5 correct, you get bragging rights that you won game time on the MilMo Show, which I know you really want, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
You're like,
Well, I haven't experienced before, so who knows?
Fingers crossed today's your day. Okay. Number 1, the door to hell. Is it real or not real?
No, I believe that's real.
It is real. It's a continuously burning natural gas crater in Turkmenistan, also known as Darva's Cave Crater, and it's been burning since 1971, when geologists lit it to prevent a spread of methane gas. So it's a real place. Okay, so you got that one. Number 2, Goblin Valley. Is it real or not real?
I believe that's real.
It is real. It's a state park in Utah. It's named that because of a rock formation. It's referred to as the Goblins. Okay, so 2 for 2. Just need one more. No. Just one more, Paul. It's good trajectory. Okay, District 12. Is that real or not real?
I'm going to say not real.
That's correct. It's actually from the Hunger Games. It's the coal mining district in that.
Okay.
Okay, so you have one bragging rights, but we want to finish strong, Paul. We want to finish strong. Okay, number 4, Lake Disappointment. Is that real or not real?
I think that's real.
It is. It's actually a dry salt lake located in Western Australia, which just sounds really, really sad. So, okay, number 5, Rivendell. Is that real or not real?
Rivendell. I'm going to guess it's real.
It's not real. But it sounds familiar probably because it's from the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's where the elves hang out.
Yeah,
so. Okay, well, you have bragging rights, Paul.
All right, great visit.
Yes, I really appreciate you playing the game and coming here in person to be on the show. Can you tell everybody listening and watching where they can learn more about you and your work?
Certainly. Most of my stuff, especially on veterans issues, is on LinkedIn. My name, Paul R. Lawrence. Information about veterans programs and resources, and to include some short videos where I try to talk to people about what they're doing, especially nonprofits.
Yes, definitely. I'll be sure to link to all of that. Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate it.
And thank you for what you do again. Thank you.
Thanks to Paul for coming on the show to talk about the VA home loan benefit. Thank you to Navy Federal for providing support to the MilMo Show. You can head over to milmo.co to get all of the links and the resources from this episode. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for the MilMo memo to get all of my updates. I appreciate you watching and listening, and I'll talk to you next week.